Well, greetings everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the show known as the Inworld Review. This is a show where we look at social worlds, the metaverse, some call it, the hybrid grid, and sort of chat about what's happening, what's new, and all sorts of stuff, really, open-ended chat. I suspect we'll be quite short this week because we don't have any special guests, as it were, even though there's quite yeah, all right, hey, yeah. Even though there is quite a lot in the news. Before I go any further, of course, I will tell you that it's the 29th of January of the year 2017. Yeah, got it right again. And I'm Mal Burns, and I'm joined by, to my right, we have from Hybrid Grid Business, Maria Korolov. Welcome, Maria.
Hey, everybody. Great to be here.
And to my left, we have James Atlloud from James Atlloud, but also multitasking for us, operating all our cameras. So welcome, James.
Well, thank you, Mal. It's fun.
Yeah. Now, all three of us on our lonesome here. I did send out various messages, particularly to Fredericks, but I guess he hasn't been able to check his Skype. So there were a few targeted guests I hope to get on at the last minute this week, but unfortunately we haven't heard from them. So we'll just make do. However, it is fitting that, in a sense, you could say Maria is a guest as well as a co-host this week, because a lot has been happening in her world. Not only has Hyperica the Grid and Hyperica the website been sold to Outworlds, she was looking for a buyer and will tell us all about that. But of course, there is other news around too. Now, for regular viewers who are just looking at this in replay or have just tuned in, I would remind you that we now have a separate news program called MetaWorld News that went out. We went live probably just under an hour ago before this program. So we don't sort of read out the news so much on this program anymore as discuss things and have guests. Although Maria's the only one this week, if you get the idea. Yes, indeed. I'm just also seeing a bit of background. Oh, yes, I need to set my eyes forward. And I'm now setting my eyes forward, and hopefully that's done the trick. I will be diverting my eyes again in a short while because we got some screens to show you during the talk this week. Anyway, how is everybody? Forgetting the issues for a minute, are we all fine here on the Inworld Review? Ready to gossip our hearts out?
Well, I have slides, so I'm really happy. I love slides.
That's awesome. Slideshow is great. I've got a bit of a little stomach bug, but I'm holding in there.
Very good, very good. We'll try and focus as much as possible on what's going on. Right. Just a couple of anecdotes from the week. Hypergrid Safari this week, wonderful as ever. We visited Craft World, who are holding a We Are One arts competition. And I'm pleased to say that, I was actually one of the judges as well, but I'm pleased to announce, because I found out this morning, that the winner of that competition is none other than Cherry Manga. We know Cherry, so congratulations, Cherry, on your artwork being the winner in that exhibit, competition, whatever you call it. And after that, we went along to Caledonian Sky Towers region. It was the one on Kitely. And we had about an hour-long reading of Mice and Men, which is their current project. We're on a region which is literally the whole landscape of that novel built and brought to life. And they don't do it as, I must get her on this show before long, but they don't do these things so much as a play, a performance. It is literally a reading. But they do the reading in a region that is like a visualization of the novel and has a lot of background material and stuff like that. So the idea is you can go there to hear the story read, and then you can explore the region to find out background and supplementary material about the life and times of the novel. And it was captivating. I sometimes find when people are reading a story to me, I blank out for at least 5 or 10 minutes before I really get absorbed. But then if the reader is right, you get absorbed. And she's a remarkable reader. You know, she's got her own voice, but also manages to bring in other voices too. by changing her accent a bit. And actually, the laugh we all had was, although it was very good, she was the first to say, "Yeah, it was a bit hard because all the characters are men and I'm a woman." But anyway, that was absolutely wonderful too. I rather wished I'd known how good it was going to be in advance, and I would actually have filmed the first section of the book that she read. I know they had the first part of the real reading yesterday, and I think the 2 other parts where they cover the whole novel, so to speak, in forthcoming weeks. Anyway, so that was that. That was good. And as I said, Cherry Manga won the craft grid We Are One art contest, or build contest. I'm not sure really which you would call it. So a few nice little things going on there. If you want to meet up with other folks traveling around the hypergrid and just socialize and take in a few locations, you can join the Hypergrid Safari any Wednesday at noon Pacific. The meeting place this coming week will be a region called HD Safari, no less, on Franco Grid. And the meeting place the week after will actually be downstairs here. It's a region called Metaworld Township, and it's on the Great Canadian Grid. After that, probably back to Franco Grid. Who knows? But we can tell you about that when the time comes. But we were listening to the news earlier. Well, we weren't so much listening as delivering it, but again, you get the idea. And a number of things in the news this week. The constant re-emergence of Abbey Worlds, for example. Trouble with pirated OAR files and major distributions of various things that shouldn't be up all over the darned hypergrid, etc. etc. But really a big headline news, despite the fact she's here anyway, is the fact that Hyperica, which is both a website and a grid, which was run by a certain Maria Korolov, whoever she is, has been sold basically after much consideration to Outworlds, spelled with a Z, which is the sort of the trading name, as it were, of Fred Fredericks, who is also the person responsible for the Dreamworld. I think it is it's like a sim on a stick kind of thing that you can download to run on your own computer, although it doesn't have to be on the stick. So I think as a starter here, I'm going to hand over to Maria to tell us. I'll probably interrupt, but she can tell us all about what's happening. And while she's doing so, we have half a dozen slides or so to pull up while she's talking. So if you just nudge me, Maria, as you're going, I'll click on the relevant slide.
All right.
As you're talking about this.
Okay. So let's pull up the first one. As some of you may know, I'm the editor of Hypergrid Business. And I got into this back in 2009 when I came back from running a news bureau in China. The financial markets had just crashed. The financial newspapers I was writing for had all cut back their travel budgets. And I really missed out on going to tech conferences. It's something I really enjoy doing, meeting various people, and I couldn't do that anymore. And I was very disappointed. So when I saw that IBM was holding a virtual conference, I got all excited about it. And they were holding it in Second Life, so I dusted off my old Second Life avatar. I had tried out Second Life like 2 or 3 years earlier when it first came out, and I thought it was really cool that you can create a virtual environment, share with other people. But I couldn't really. Yeah.
Can I ask you? It's a side question, really, but I really got to ask this of you. Are you a U.S. citizen?
Yep.
Yeah. So in fact, but I'm suddenly realizing that if this happened today, and you suddenly came back to the US, and say you were on a visa, and you were coming back, from China, apparently your visa might actually be worthless. You wouldn't be let in because you were coming from China.
Well, I'm not Muslim, so Trump would have let me back in.
Yeah, and Chinese are Muslim, as a rule.
Yeah, China's not one of the banned countries. So yeah, luckily I am a U.S. citizen and wasn't coming in from a Muslim country, and Trump wasn't president.
Yeah,
But anyway,
we will talk about this later because a lot of game companies and virtual worlds companies and things
oh
are,
my God, yeah,
as well as Google and stuff, their own
it's a nightmare. Yeah,
their own employees who've got valid visas are being refused because they're coming back from the wrong country. Anyway, I will let you continue. You came back from China, and
yes,
yes, sorry about that
yes.
interruption.
So for those who don't know, I'm like, I don't just do a blog. I'm an actual, real professional journalist. I've worked for the Chicago Tribune. I covered civil wars in Russia for Reuters. I reported from Afghanistan, from like Chechnya, a whole bunch of places. And I ran a business news bureau in China for 5 years. So, yeah, I've been doing this like a really long time. And the idea of like a virtual environment that you can create and explore and share and have that be simultaneously accessible to like every human being on the planet was just like super, super attractive to me. And I was like really excited about it. And I just couldn't see any use for it. So in 2009, IBM was holding a conference in Second Life. So I could get a chance to go to a conference without having to try to get a travel budget out of my editors. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I showed up. And unlike a web conference, and I attend a lot of webinars and earnings calls where somebody reads a statement and maybe shows a couple of slides and you get a chance to ask one question in a queue. And it's all on the phone. Here I was in what felt like a location with other people. I can chat with the other attendees and gossip before it started, meet the presenters before it started, then listen to the presentation, maybe ask some questions during the presentation. Afterwards, walk up to the presenters, introduce myself, ask some follow-up questions, and schedule follow-up interviews. That's how I normally cover a conference. There's a lot more to it than just sitting there and like getting the information. It's all about making the connections and asking the follow-up questions and all this other stuff that goes into it. And I was able to do all of that. I can make jokes about the weather. I can, gossip about
the virtual snow is falling. Hey, folks.
Somebody had a robot avatar. How gosh, and so you'd have this discussion. And I talked to the IBM guys, and I scheduled the follow-up interviews, and it was just super, super cool. And for the first time, I was like, I can see a real reason for this. That's actually something useful and beneficial. This is something that I need to pay more attention to. And the flip side, the other side of it, was that the conference was all about OpenSim, that you could have an open source virtual environment, that you can run it behind your corporate firewall or your school firewall, and that you can teleport from it to those run by other companies or other schools. That was just mind-blowing. I was super impressed, and I really wanted to know more about this because my primary gig for the past 15 years or so has been as an enterprise technology journalist, which means that I write about how businesses, nonprofits, educational institutions, and government institutions use technology. More specifically, in the last few years, I've been covering cybersecurity for CSO magazine. So this is my primary focus these past few years, has been enterprises and their use of technology. And I thought this OpenSim stuff was really cool, and I wanted to find out more. And I went out there looking for it, and there wasn't anything out there. Nobody was covering this. And I was like, this is the next evolution of the internet. Everybody should be all over it. Why aren't they? So I started pitching stories to the magazines that I work for. And they really didn't care. They would run like 1 or 2 stories a year. And I decided to start my own blog to cover this, specifically to cover enterprise uses of virtual environments, which has been our tagline since the beginning. And so I launched Hypergrid Business, and I started meeting all the developers and talking to IBM about what they were doing, and Intel, and the various schools and companies using this. And what I discovered almost immediately was that what readers actually wanted was gossip about grids, events, where to get stuff for their avatars, and that nobody else was really covering this in any kind of consistent way. So I wound up doing a weird mix of enterprise coverage and social coverage of OpenSim. And I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm not much of a social person. I don't hang out in World unless I have a meeting to go to or something specific to do. I don't participate in role-playing games. I'm basically a giant workaholic nerd. And so covering events and content and dresses and shoes and sports and airplanes and vehicles and all this stuff was just like really weird to me. I had never worried about lifestyle issues before, pretty much in my life. So this is a big.
I know that feeling, although I think you're probably worse than me.
So this was a big stretch, and it was amazing how involved I got with the community. So as you guys know, I helped organize OpenSim community conferences every year. For a while, I was organizing an OpenSim entrepreneur group. I had the destination directory. I was posting scripts. I was trying everything out and sharing all this content. I was doing a monthly stats report. I haven't missed a month since the mid of 2009. I've been putting out a statistics report about what's happening in OpenSim because I'm a little bit obsessive compulsive. You know, when I start doing something, like I really do it. Yeah. So over these past few years, we've published more than 2,000 articles from more than 200 different writers, contributors, experts, and other writers. So we've had freelancers, we've had developers, we've had like a whole bunch of people writing articles for us, and it's turned into this big, huge thing. So the focus already was shifting away from the enterprise towards the social side of it already. And then something really big happened last year. So virtual reality exploded. I don't know if you guys noticed this. And
can't avoid it.
Thing.
We'll talk about it.
Right.
That thing. Yeah. Actually, may I ask you before you continue?
Yeah.
The name of your site actually always has been Hypergrid Business, which of course is the OpenSim connection. Do you find that? Have you ever felt that with this spreading out of the focus that you've been almost organically drifting into? That that maybe is. I mean, you've got.
That makes zero sense. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But there's so many links to it. We have such a high blog authority right now. We are in Google News. We've got a high Alexa rating. I get like several dozen requests a day from people who want to write articles for us, and I have to I just at this point I'm just deleting all those emails without even responding to them because there's so many. Okay. So this like blog has developed the kind of institutional weight around the name. Now, if you flip to the next slide with the 3-part thing, this is the kind of articles that we wrote this past year. So it's about a third. So the red chunk is the OpenSim stuff, and that's about almost exactly 33% of our coverage is OpenSim. Another 26%, a little bit more than a quarter, is enterprise stuff. What's happening with companies and schools, and we're using VR for marketing and training and all this other stuff. And then that big chunk in the middle, 40%, these are all the articles we've been writing about virtual reality, specifically consumer-oriented virtual reality. And that little blue strip at the top,
the tiny strip called general.
that's like the homepage. It's like. Yeah. What would I put that? What category would I put that into? I don't write a lot of those kinds of articles because it's just a homepage. It'll change, right? But maybe there's like an about us page or something we put up that's new or something. So very few things fall into that category. Mostly, it's about a third OpenSim, a third consumer VR, and a third enterprise stuff. Meanwhile, if you go to the next slide. This is how people are actually reading it. The green part is consumer VR. This is the headsets and the gadgets. More than 3/4 of our readers come for the VR headset reviews, which is insane.
It is all that. Yeah.
6% come from the enterprise stuff. Now, so 1/4 of our articles were about enterprise, but only 6% of our readers are enterprise. And then another 10% is OpenSim, and the rest go to the homepage and stuff like that.
Now,
So,
these figures I am very surprised because the enterprise VR is so small. Do you think there is a grey area where these overlap? And I presume your figures are for readers that are coming from enterprise sites.
No.
No?
This is about how many people read these articles. So
Right.
everybody reads the headset review articles and passes them along. Nobody reads the enterprise articles. We publish them, and everybody ignores them. So that's the
interesting.
thing.
Interesting.
So
right.
now, if you lump in the general stuff, which is like the homepage, in with the OpenSim stuff, that's about like 20% of our readers are looking for that stuff. And 77% are looking for headset reviews, QR codes, app reviews, that kind of very consumer stuff.
Whoa.
Yeah. So now if you look at the next page, the next slide, this is our readership numbers.
Sorry. Pardon my language.
Yeah. So we went from around 2,000 unique readers a month back when we launched, which is pretty decent, 2,000 readers, nothing to sneeze at, to somewhere approaching 200,000 readers last month. So this is giant.
Yeah, this.
Yep.
That final steep. You need proper climbing kit to get up that one, don't you? It is steep. The slow trek ends about mid-year last year, and then now you've got serious climbing to do. That's amazing.
Right.
That is amazing. Yeah,
that is amazing. So when I saw these numbers, I was like, we've turned into something different than what I thought we were doing, and we're gonna have to like rethink who we are, or who I am in particular. I also looked at where the revenues were coming from. Now, people are always saying that I write clickbait articles in order to get the clicks, in order to sell the ads. In practice, the site has been losing money since the first day it's been founded. We pay for hosting, we pay for freelance writers. And the money coming in from advertising has been extremely, extremely low. First, because OpenSim grids don't have the money to spend on advertising. And also because I hate selling advertising. I like writing articles. I don't like selling ads. These are very different kinds of jobs.
Yeah.
And since our site is not making any money, I don't have the budget to hire a salesperson. And if I were to say, go and hire a salesperson anyway, they wouldn't have anyone to sell to. So, it's that there is no market there for selling ads in OpenSim. So OpenSim, which accounts for 11% of our readers, accounts for none of our revenues. Where the revenues have started coming from, this is in the last couple of months, has been when I do a gadget review, at the bottom of the article, I post all the links to places where you can buy the gadget. And most of those places don't have affiliate programs. A couple do. And I say that, in the article, I will have the affiliate links where they are available. But I try to find the cheapest option among all of them because, I didn't really expect anyone to ever actually click on them. And it turns out that when people look for headset reviews, it's because they want to buy a headset.
Oh, gosh.
And they do click on those links and they do buy the headsets. And now we're actually making enough money to pay for hosting and to pay for the freelancer. So the VR headsets are paying for the OpenSim coverage is the bottom line here.
Amazing.
So what I've decided to do is to take that chunk of enterprise stories, the business articles, and just cut them out. It's a lot of work to put those together. Nobody reads them, and nobody pays for them. So why are we doing them? And instead, the money I would have spent on freelancers for those articles, or the time I would have spent on those articles, we're putting into either OpenSim or VR headsets. So David, for example, Karuki, one of our freelance writers, did the monthly stats report last month, which was huge. And he did the content depth story yesterday, which was also a huge story. He did a huge amount of work on it. He did a really nice job. So I'm going to be able to have him do more of that. I'm going to upgrade my databases and a few other things. So I'm sticking with OpenSim. And what I'm also going to do is, because selling ads is a pain and annoying, I'm going to make the ads on Hypergroup Business free. If I like your ad, if it's pretty, if it's attractive, if it's useful to our readers, if it gives people a reason to click, I'll just run the ad for free. And then I won't have to deal with the whole administration side of it, which is, previously I was running the ads through Google DoubleClick, which is the big advertising platform. There was like billing issues and management issues and view tracking issues, and all this other stuff had to be dealt with. I don't want to deal with any of that. Sure. I'd rather put up a free ad for you for a month if I like the looks of your ad. It's free, so you can't complain, you know?
Yeah, that helps as well. No moaning. I love it.
And the reason I'll be able to do that is because the occasional person clicks on a headset review and buys a headset. So that's like one thing that I'm doing. I'm also
how about well, you're probably going to get to this, but obviously your main readership is consumer VR and the headset reviews and things.
Yeah.
Will you, so people who see adverts on your site, will they see separate ads in those sections from in the Hypergroup OpenSim section?
They will see the OpenSim ads. I'm only running OpenSim ads. I'm not running any other ads because ads are a pain in the butt.
Right.
I will include the affiliate links with the purchases as one of the places we can buy it, and that's it. So I'm not going to mess around with the whole ad publishing infrastructure. It's a huge pain. I don't want to learn. I don't want to do it. I don't want to manage it. I don't want to deal with grids threatening to pull their ad because the story is bad or somebody on them and said something rude. I'm like, I don't care. Pull your ad. So at this point, every grid that's ever advertised with me, with like one exception, has pulled the ad because of something I wrote about that they didn't like.
Yeah, well, people do. It's a common problem here in OpenSim, because you've got a lot of, shall I say, not unprofessional, but smaller operators who really don't know the way things work. And if you're a rock band, right? You want to advertise your latest album, you put an album maybe in the latest, the weekly rock newspaper, right? Yes. But you have no control over what the reviewer says about that album in the paper. The editorial, there's an awareness that people go to the magazine for the editorial and its comprehensive coverage and maybe mixed opinions. The point of the advert is to get to those readers. It's not, it's a conduit for the advert. It's a thing that keeps the magazine going, but you can't go to a magazine and say, well, I'm gonna take 2 pages with you so long as you do a whole issue devoted to me and be favorable. Doesn't work that way.
Well, some publications do that, and they go out of business almost immediately. Yeah. Because who wants to read a magazine that's all ads?
No. Unless
you're reading Computer Shop or Auto Trader, where you're there for the ads. Yeah. You're not going to get readers because nobody will trust it, and it's all boring. It's all fluffy ads. Who wants that, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's all spam, basically spam. Who wants to read spam, right? So yes, I'm going to get rid of the ads, and I'm going to be doing a free land page. I did a report a couple of years ago, free land in OpenSim, that a lot of people liked, but it was a PDF that you download, so I could make it pretty, but it was hard to update because it's a PDF that everybody already has. It was hard to link to because it was a PDF download. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a regular page on the website that I can update all the time and that I can link to anytime, and I'll promote that. So if you're a grid and you want to bring people to your grid and you have a good land offer, not like one of those cheesy ones, first week free kind of thing, or trial offers or whatever. Like, who wants that, right? No, a real free land offer, like free quarter region, as long as you check in once a month. That's a good free land offer. I'll put it on the page and promote that for you. So that's free too. And I'm also going to continue the vendor listings that are free. So that's what I'm doing for the OpenSim community. I got to say that I like covering OpenSim quite a bit. So the OpenSim stories don't get a lot of readers on a bigger scale. The stuff that I do during the day gets millions of readers because I write for publications like CSO and Computer World and Network World. But the interaction I get from readers is way more intense in OpenSim. People contact me directly. People will call me at home in the middle of the night and wake me up to yell at me. And
you enjoy this?
Yeah, I mean, I like having that connection with readers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like when you're writing for CSO magazine, you're like one anonymous writer out of their whole team. Nobody notices your byline. Nobody has a personal connection with you. You're just part of CSO. There's people coming in and out all the time. Nobody pays attention to it.
Actually, another anecdote here is in our Slack channel. I have aggregating news feeds, mostly my tweets and stuff, and I have a robot that actually searches, I guess, Twitter for @Maria Korolov. And since I added that, I don't just get your tweets. I get all the tweets that mention you by name, which is masses. And, and they usually are the things like the CSO articles. So although maybe people don't cotton on to your name when they're reading the article, they are twittering the article which has your name. And, it's so there are a hell of it. It gets around, believe me. I have to scroll right down them all.
I know, but they don't contact me directly. You know,
I'm with
they
you.
don't. Occasionally I'll get a note from a reader. You did a study about such and such. Where is the source report? Like, oh, here's the link. That kind of thing. But I get like 1 or 2 of those a month. With Hypergrid Business, I get 1 or 2 of those an hour. It's dramatically different.
Yeah.
And people really care about this stuff and get really involved. And it's nice to have that kind of feedback. When I worked for the newswires, I never saw any feedback at all. And when I worked in China, very little feedback at all from readers because I never really got a chance to interact with them. But here in OpenSim, I'm interacting with my readers all the time. And that is very kind of life affirming, I'm doing something that makes a practical difference to people, not in a theoretical sense. Oh, this improves their corporate accounting procedures, but in a very practical, immediate gratification way, like, oh, I found a new pair of shoes thanks to your directory, and that is nice. That is very soul affirming. So that's where I'm kind of standing with OpenSim and how I'm restructuring the site. So if you do want to send stuff to me, send along. We'll put up a free ad. We'll put up a free land listing. We'll put up a free vendor listing. We'll run your press releases and news just like we do now. So that side of it's not going to change. We're going to drop the enterprise coverage. And we're going to do a little bit more on the VR headsets. Not that much more because I get bored doing a review of the 20th headset that's the same as the other ones.
It does seem to me that looking at the future, there may be a bit of a correlation there because avoiding the VR enterprise and technology, as it were, and focusing on on your chart showed consumer VR, it does mean that although it's not the hypergrid and OpenSim, you are dealing with people who are consumers, and that possibly as consumers of VR increase, the headsets aside, more and more people will discover things like OpenSim and the hypergrid, which is sort of where you say you came in with the IBM thing of realizing all this potential.
Well,
so I reckon there are people buying consumer VR at the moment. Instead of buying a big screen TV, they would just watch in-your-face movies on it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
But gradually, as
Mhm.
as more things come online, social worlds come online, then we may see a pickup on the that community level of engagement from that other audience sort of seeping across into the OpenSim audience. Hopefully, a little bit.
All right. So now the other thing that I'm giving back to the community, kind of, right, is that the OpenSim ads that I'll be running will be shown to the 100,000+ people who come here for the VR stuff, who maybe have never heard of OpenSim before.
Mm.
And that's another reason why I want to have the ads be nice. Give people something interesting to look at in the ad and a reason to click on it that is as appealing and attractive to people who maybe are not inside baseball kind of OpenSim people.
Yeah.
Because this is your opportunity to put something in front of 100,000 other people interested in virtual environments. Take this opportunity, use something with it. So,
I think that's a great idea, because basically you don't want ads that is like a new grid starting up saying, hey, we got cheap prices, come to our region, give up your own home grid. Your grids will be able to come and say, look, vast audience of consumers out there, are you interested in blues music? Well, we've got a grid that is devoted to blues venues and recreating.
Right.
And so hopefully there's a small proportion will see that and think, yeah, that's a place to look up, a place I could hang out,
Right.
but rather than this in sort of, switch from this grid to this grid and all the stuff that tends to go on in the OpenSim community.
Yeah. For example,
I would actually think maybe it would be wise for you to say that the ads are free, but specify that they should be editorially focused on a mass audience rather than an internal audience.
I will, but I'm doing that like one-on-one with the people. So like
Sure.
right now,
Yeah.
somebody sent me an ad for their company, and the entire ad is their logo, their company name. That's it. And the company name doesn't mean anything, right? You know the company names that are in the OpenSim space. None of them mean anything.
Yeah.
So so I called them back, and I emailed them back, and I said, okay, what's the reason why somebody would click on this ad? Give them a reason to click on it. So they revised it and sent it back, and the revised ad basically said, logo, company name, click here to find out more about us. Oh, no!
Oh dear, yeah. Click here to wander off into oblivion. Yeah.
Yeah, like no, nobody's gonna click on that. No, do something. Use that platform to actually say something juicy and interesting.
Yeah. Sure.
So moving on from that, the Hyperica website. If you click on the next slide.
Oh yes.
That's a different website that I did. I think I started back in 2010, and it gets about 1/10 of the traffic that we get at Hypergrid Business. I think it had about 20,000 unique readers last year. So it has, sorry, not 1/10. So it gets 1/10 as many unique readers over a whole year as we got last month. But these are people who really care about OpenSim. These are the 20,000 active users of OpenSim who come here. And 10,000 of them use the Hyperica Destination Guide, which is on the next slide over.
Okay, so
what this, whoops, that didn't scale well.
there we go.
Sorry about that. Folks who are looking at this, what this is if you're in the viewer and you click on the destination guide, instead of having the Second Life destinations come up, you will get these destinations from us of the top OpenSim grids. And the way it works is that the grid where you're based links to that web page, and there's a whole bunch of web pages that go into this guide. And then from then on, everybody who's a resident of the grid sees it come up in their viewer. So very useful. We had about 10,000 people using it last year. So Hyperica is a lot of work. Keeping up all these destinations up to date is a lot of work. I don't have any of it automated because I'm not a programmer. I'm a person who writes articles. So I don't have the money to spend on staff to keep it updated. And my Hyperport, which was built by Kitty Jack Studio, if you scroll one more image, That's a picture of the Hyperica grid with a bunch of gates in it. That was built by a company called Katie Jack Studio in return for some free advertising. They did a really nice job. But you know, you have to keep that up to date. You have to keep fixing the gates, because grids go out of business. You know, and I never had the time to do it or the money to hire somebody to do it.
I think everybody has this problem with dead hypergates. You know, that you raise as a favor to somebody, and then they're not there. They go, and you forget.
I wrote a script that actually checks if the destination is up, and only activates the gate if it's live, and has the gate go dark when it's offline. So I did that. I shared the script. It's free. If you email me, I can send you a link to where I posted it. But if you want to do this so that, say, if a destination has been down for a certain number of days, take it off your directory, that requires some database programming. And that's not something that I had the skill to do. So this region has been under construction for all of its life, with under construction signs up everywhere. I never had the time to fix it. I don't have the people to fix it. The traffic is super, super low compared to Hypergrid Business. There is zero revenues from it because there's too little traffic for revenues. 20,000 people is not any traffic at all. So, and it was a lot of guilt hanging over me. So I decided to shut it down. And I posted an article earlier this month saying I'm shutting it down. And people started writing to me saying, don't shut it down. This is a great resource. I'll host it for you here. I'll do this with it there. I've got a company. We can buy this piece of it from you. We can buy that piece of it from you. So people wanted to set up mirror sites of it to kind of archive it, or to give copies away for free, which I'm fine with, or break it up into pieces and use it as part of commercial projects, which is okay. At least it's doing something. And then Fred Beck-Hussein, who runs the Outworld's grid and website, which is a great content sharing website. It's wonderful. Definitely check it out. He wrote to me about a few days ago saying, I'm going to buy the whole thing from you. I will keep the website up. I will keep the grid up. I will keep the destination guide up without changing how it works, so it won't break how grids use it. I will automate everything, because he's a programmer. That's what he does. That's his day job. He runs a development company. And he's been doing this for quite a while. Like you mentioned, he has the Dreamworld installer. He's a really great resource for OpenSim. And he said, I'm going to do all this, and I'm going to invest the time, and I'm going to invest the effort into not just keeping it alive, which is already pretty good, but making it better. So I'm like, yes, great. That's done. So
that's the deal. A perfect fit.
It was because I was agonizing over this. I'm like, not so much about the website, because there's other websites. I mean, OpenSim World is a really nice directory of hypergrid destinations. And I wasn't worried so much about the grid, because there's other hyperports out there. I publish an updated list of all the hypergrid addresses of all the grids every month. It's free. Anybody can grab it and use it for their hyperport. And I encourage people to do that. So anybody can set up a hyperport, and there are lots of them all over the place. Like Sanctuary and Soliton, and a bunch of grids have miniature hyperports, on their grids or welcome regions. So there's that part of it I wasn't so worried about, but the destination guide was unique, and there was 10,000 people who were using it. So I felt kind of bad about that. And Fred taking the whole thing over and keeping it up and improving it was just such a huge relief and such a huge weight off my shoulders. So now all the content's properly licensed. He has the right to give it away. The scripts are all CC0 licensed. Anybody can use them any way they want to. And I went back to Katie Jack, who did the builds, and Katie Jack signed a new license agreement with me, where the build could be distributed under the CCNC license, which means non-commercial licensed. So that means that Fred can take the whole ore, and he can post it on his site and give it away for free to anybody who wants to use it for non-commercial reasons. So that's a really great thing that he's doing. and Fred himself can use it commercially if he wants to, because the license supports that as well for the main owner. So I think that worked out really well, and it's going to be really, really good for the community. So, and then,
I certainly can't think of any better hands for it offhand.
I know.
Yeah, it's very
was
good.
really racking my mind. I'm like, I know everybody in OpenStem who would want to take on this huge amount of work that's thankless work.
Yeah,
And
but steps up.
yeah, without trying to do it. I mean, I don't mind if somebody does something commercial with it, like promote their own grid or something else, or use it to build a social media platform. But that would have required chopping it up into pieces, and it wouldn't have helped for the long-term survival of the project either. So
I think it's a bit of a different thing too, because I often think, not so much a grid, but you go to a region, and I tend to think of you can only put up a limited number of hypergates, right? As a rule, without building a fully fledged hyperport. So I tend to think of it as like, well, you've got a region, think of it like, people coming there, it's like they come to read a blog. So think of your hypergates a bit like a blog roll where you swap and exchange. So you've got a hypergate that goes to a friend's region, which hopefully will be of interest to the friends coming to yours. And hopefully the person at the other end has a reciprocal hypergate leading back to yours. So there's an organic flavor to hypergridding, but that doesn't defeat the need for things like Hyperica and Inworld, which are essentially huge databases, really, of everything that people can search and find when they want to. Two different ways of viewing it, but they go hand in hand, I think, and so.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I have on Hyperica, which Fred now has, is a little object that's linked to the Hyperica directory and the destination guide. So you can use the destination guide as a physical in-world object that has the thing you can click on and sort through the top gates and favorite shopping destinations, and then click again to teleport to one of them. So so if you don't want to build a full hyperport on your region, you can also grab that, and it's free. And if anybody wants that directly from me, I can get that to them as well. So the third thing that I've been changing up is that at the end of, sometime I guess in the middle of the summer, both of my kids are no longer depending on me. My daughter is going off to graduate school to study quantum physics and fusion energy, or something like that.
Cool.
And my son is graduating, and he's going to be going to work, and maybe starting up a farm. So opposite extremes, there. And I'm going to be on my own, and I have been living out here in Western Massachusetts on 100 acres of beautiful land with fresh air and trees and stuff. And as you guys know, because I keep bringing it up, I hate it. All this fresh air is killing me. Oh my God, I have to drive like an hour to go anywhere. So, so this summer I'm moving to New York City, and which I love. I love New York. I love big cities. I lived in Shanghai. I lived in Chicago. I lived in Moscow, and I've lived in the middle of nowhere. And I always love the cities. And there's just so much energy and people, and middle of the night pizza deliveries. I just love everything there's about a city. I would fly in from China. I would stand on Wall Street, and I would breathe in the air, and I'd be like, oh, fresh air. Of course, this is from China. Because it's like heavily polluted. But anyway, so I'm moving to New York. I'm going to be renting an apartment somewhere funky. So if people have recommendations about moving to New York and neighborhoods that are tech friendly and writers communities and international restaurants and stuff like that, absolutely send me advice. I'm all ears.
Very cool.
And then the other thing I'll be doing is that since I was a little kid, or kind of medium age kid, one of my top goals, in fact, the top goal, has been to be a novelist, to be a fiction writer.
Oh.
And I've made multiple stabs at starting novels. And the reason I first became a journalist is because one of my attempts at a novel was so boring that I myself fell asleep while rereading it.
I get that feeling sometimes. It's quite embarrassing, isn't it?
So obviously I couldn't give it to someone else to read because I myself couldn't stay awake for more than a few pages. So I said, I have to get some. I have to go out and do interesting things. I have something to write about. So I went off and became a war correspondent, which is because I love Hemingway. I think this is a great thing for writers to go off and be shot at for a few years, and that really teaches you something.
I imagine.
I don't know what. and so now I'm gonna have the time. I'm not really gonna have any excuses anymore to put it off. I have done over these past 20 years a lot of different kinds of journalism, and I have spent 20 years getting paid for writing. So somebody out there likes reading what I write. My kids are going to be gone, and I'm moving to a new place, starting this new phase of my life, and I'm going to write that damn book. I'm sorry, darned book. So, and it's going to be about virtual worlds, because that is something
wonderful.
I'm really excited about for the future. It's going to be a science fiction book, and hopefully it's going to be a funny science fiction book. And I hope you guys will kind of,
read it
on this. We read it too, but even the occasional word of encouragement and pretending to read it is fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I must admit, I can really sympathise with this, because I have dreams of doing that too. They're like the little novelettes to go with the land downstairs and little adventures and things, and somehow sometimes the synopsis gets done but nothing else gets done, and you really got to sort of tune out everything else and tune into what you're creating, the novel. And I really wish you luck, because all my plans in that direction seem to fall apart at the moment I try.
All right,
It's tough.
Well, one of our audience members just emailed me to say they're watching me on the show, so I'd wave my hand to you, but I don't even know what the command for that is. And there's like poses built into the share, so I don't even know if I can do that. But pretend I'm waving my hand at you there, Terry. So hi. All right.
I wonder if it's a Terry I invited on. That's
so many
interesting.
Terrys out there.
There's been a few people wandering around downstairs, which is unusual at a specific time. I keep wondering, I wonder if they're coming looking for the show and they don't know we're 5,000 feet up or something. If anybody is here looking for us, if you go into the studios and go backstage, there's a sign saying Inworld Reviewed, and actually teleports you up to the level where our actual live studio is. I can't teleport all you up on the off chance. Right, actually, that's a good point, James. I guess are you watching the stream channel, the chat room there? Are people commenting or anything of interest?
No comment today, but there's people watching for sure.
Yeah, yep. They're just watching quietly and directly emailing Maria. Like it. But yeah, there is a comment there, and we do occasionally get those comments. So if you have any thoughts about what we're talking about, etc.
I've got to say, I love the fact that YouTube lets people know that the show is on. Yeah. That is super cool. I really like that.
That's great.
And they sent me the announcement as well that the show is on. So I just clicked on it to see it. I'm really glad we're doing that, Mel. I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, so am I. Do you know that actually was a bit of an accident? Because I had forgotten that they did that.
I remember that last time.
Moving from live stream was for another reason entirely. But then, James and I went on and did a test to check all our cameras are set up properly. And lo and behold, James and I had our real life webcams on, and there was no audio. Nobody could hear us. But people had got the message and were tuning in and saying, "Got you turn voice on. We want to hear you."
Right.
And this is a test. I didn't realize we were I didn't realize Google had notified 500 or 600 people or whatever it is.
So that is really cool. One thing I meant to do and forgot, I am so sorry, Mal, is I meant to post the link to last week's show, both the the news segment and the guest segment, and I forgot to do that. After bugging you to break them out so I can do that specifically, I then forgot to do that.
And it's actually it's rather funny because last week's show, of course, you weren't here, and we actually didn't do an Inworld review. We had a week off. We did the news, James and me, but but we didn't have an Inworld review. So
right. So
it's called transition, folks.
That's right. Definitely.
Yeah, it takes time to get the hang of it because like the permanent link isn't up right away after the show ends, and I went off to do something else while it was doing its thing, and then I forgot to do it. So yeah.
Very nice.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that is another thing, folks watching. Do feel free to press whatever button it is and like it, or more to the point, you can grab an embed code and put it on your own blog or post it to Google Plus. The more it gets around, the better, as far as we're concerned. Like Hypergrid Business for the OpenStream viewers. It is here for you. We're not making any money out of it. Just get them rolling in, folks. Google can only do so much on its own, I guess.
Yes.
But yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, well, actually, that what can I say, Maria? Very enlightening bit of history and future there.
Yeah,
I hope it all goes well. I am very very pleased to know that Ferd is the one who's taken it over. Literally bought it off you too.
Yep.
It couldn't be in better hands, Iberico. And what you plan for Hypergrid Business makes sense too. The only thing that actually surprises me is that somehow I thought maybe you'd. Well, no, I guess you've got the Hypergrid Business name, so that is viable already. Why change it?
Yeah.
I wondered if you're going to have Hypergrid Business as a sort of subsection of something called VR Business or something. But then again,
I don't have a business anymore.
Yeah.
And I have a question about that anyway, Maria, because we were talking about the name, and I still try to imagine what would be, the metaverse, if not a grid. I mean, whether it's OpenSim or whether it's another platform, it's still going to be servers connecting to servers, and I think hypergrid is still a fascinating or appropriate term.
Yep. Well,
yes,
it's going to be called something else because it's always called something else.
Okay.
Yep.
That's
true.
Yeah.
Things gets renamed all the time, and so odds are, I mean, it is theoretically possible that it will still be called the hypergrid, but it's much more likely that it'll be called some other weird thing that we can't even imagine yet.
Yeah, I mean, people come up with names, and it will include 2 or 3 things that become the more commonly used name, and it's like the expression VR these days. It includes so much that isn't really truly VR, but it's all termed VR. And it goes beyond what VR stands for, which is virtual reality. It can now covers all virtual sort of destinations and things that aren't actually virtual realities. They're just virtual expositions and things. So, but the phrases that people get used to the phrase. It's like in Britain here, ever since I was a kid, a vacuum cleaner has been called a Hoover. But Hoover was Hoover was a model of vacuum cleaner. But
Kleenex.
It's never left the language, if you see what I mean. It's become a generic expression that transcended the brand or what it was originally was. So, yeah. Now, moving on to other stuff as it were. There are 2 things. Firstly, we did cover in the news, of course. In fact, you covered it quite a lot. The business of stray OAR files is the most polite word I can use. And we're
content theft scandal. Let's just be straight ahead and say that.
It seems to me we've discussed this so many times on previous occasions and what you can do to prevent it and stuff like that. But it seems the gravity of this one and the sheer number of people getting involved in the conversation and meeting solutions and everything else. This one is a bit greater than the previous ones. It's gone into a lot of depth, tracking as you told us on the news, there's like a backtrack path to sort of figuring out where it all happened and how and stuff. Quite complex one for people who don't know about these things. And it does seem to be an ongoing discussion here. In other words, people are investigating, maybe coming up with solutions. And as I mentioned on the news, Roddy Mackey of the Canadian Grid here reminded people earlier today, not only did he give a link to that article of yours, but he reminded everybody on this grid that there's a reason we don't allow the upload of OAR files, and this is it, and read more, Not all grids, of course, do this. Do you think, with all these arguments and stuff coming online, and sometimes I despair because I think, people reading all this debate and stuff, they think, oh God, forget the hypergrid, we'll let them sort it out and check in a year later to see if they've sorted it. But do you think things are getting any better on this front as a result?
Oh my God, yes. It used to, when I first got into OpenSim, it used to be that pretty much any freebie store you walked into was pirated content. Because people were pissed that they paid for something in Second Life and they couldn't bring it into OpenSim, so they would just copy bot it and bring it over. And then they would share it and then pass it on. It gets passed on through several hands. And at the end of it, you don't even know where it came from.
Yeah.
And even some reputable distributors wound up with collections of pirated content in their distribution channels, websites, stores, or what have you. And this was a big, huge problem, and OpenSim was pretty much synonymous with copybotters. And some people were trying to justify this. Well, it's not fair because I already paid for it. Or if this is open source, so everything should be free. Or American money-grabbing capitalists shouldn't be dictating, cents for the world.
Oh, well, that could be a segue for another question, but carry on.
No, let's not go into that. So they were what they were into, like freedom and joy and wonder and everything else. So, and they thought that this was for some reason okay to do. So that I think the person who ended that was Linda Kelly. Because she released a whole giant collection of content, professional level, commercial quality content that she had previously sold herself in Second Life, that was all created from scratch by her. She released it all under a CC0 license. This is the virtual equivalent of public domain. People could get this and use it in any way they wanted to. They could sell it if they wanted to. They could make stuff with it and sell it. They could put it on their grids, use it to promote their grids. They could change the names on all of it. They could claim themselves as creators. They could do whatever the hell they wanted, and she was okay with that. I mean, this is like a saintly act. And pretty much overnight, grids took down their stores full of pirated loot and replaced them with Linda Kelly stores. She made it super easy. She actually made complete regions with shopping malls on them and welcome regions for grids and everything. Entire regions. Everything nicely scripted and packaged and landscaped. And it's astounding how much work she put into it. All of it CC0 licensed, all of it free. And she put it all out there for anybody to use in any way whatsoever. And you think, oh, yeah, well, everyone will just resell it under their own name and she won't get any credit. No, trust me, she got a ton of credit for this. And if she wanted to use this to make a career as a custom developer or whatever, if she wanted to, she has the most brand name recognition of anybody anywhere by not defending her brand, by just donating to the community, by being really, really super generous. That has actually been the strongest marketing thing she could have done. She has not capitalized on it. She has not commercialized it. In fact, she's continuing constantly to reinvent herself and to bring out continuing new content, most recently for the new mesh bodies.
The mesh avatars, yeah.
Yeah, so really, really amazing work on her part. So after that point, nobody had the excuse of saying, oh, well, there's no content in OpenSim, or we can't get legal content in OpenSim. That was a giant change in how things worked. Then the other big change was the Kitely market launched. And now you could get reasonably priced content delivered to almost any grid. They deliver to 165 grids now, legally licensed, with really clear takedown policies. On every page for the product listing page, there's a little thing that says report this item, where you can report it if it's stolen content, and Kitely takes it down, investigates right away. They've been super good about this. They keep it clean. All the money creators make is held for like, was it 90 days until everything's cleared through, to make sure that there's no fraud going on before the creators get the money. So random hackers can't make money off of your products after they steal them. So really, really nice system in place. And they've got something like, was it nearly, 20,000 items in there right now? I read out the stats earlier in the news section of the show.
It's a lot, yeah.
Huge amount of content, everything you could possibly want available at really low, reasonable prices in every shape, size, form, and color. Get it delivered instantly to almost any grid. Even closed grids that are not on a hypergrid can set up so they get Kitely market deliveries. So if you're a school somewhere or a business, you don't want to have hypergrid travel, you don't want kids going in and out to like the dirty sex grids, you can have it closed, and you can still have people buying stuff on the Kitely market so that you can have like stuff for your schools and stuff for your teachers and everything else. So the Kitely market provided a way for creators to get paid in OpenSim in a very nice, organized, professional way. And that, I think, was the other big thing that changed content in OpenSim. The fact that you can get both a huge library of free content that you can do anything you want with, and licensed commercial content that's legal, that you get support for, and everything else. Those are big, dramatic changes in how content is used in OpenSim and how content is thought about in OpenSim. And so this time around, when there was a scandal, the reaction wasn't, oh, well, OpenSim will be OpenSim, you know, what can you do? No, the reaction was like, oh my God, that's horrible. I can't believe it's happening. Let's shut it down now. And within 2 days, the main grid that was involved took everything offline and is going through and cleaning everything up. Every other grid involved is going through cleaning their stuff up. Even grids that were not touched by the scandal at all, including Great Canadian Grid, are going through and just double checking that you know they haven't accidentally wound up with any of this stolen content. I think it's a great example of the progress we made.
Yeah, so basically this latest scandal, we might as well call it that, has actually triggered a great movement, as it were, in an attempt to clean it up. Basically,
no, it's an example of how our standards have changed.
Yeah, and how people are working together to sort it out. Whereas, as you say, you know, a couple of years ago, something like this would come up, and it would only touch a few people's radar, and other people wouldn't care. Whereas now, it's it's reached a point where the community, and by that I mean all the grids on the hypergrid, as it were, maybe not all, but the majority of them are working together to eradicate these kind of problems. And so although it is a scandal and current, all the signs are that there's a lot of people coming together and chipping in here to work out ways of getting rid of it and finding solutions to it not happening with any frequency again.
All right. So
okay.
yeah, I think it's. And I also love the way that people got together on this. People with reputations to protect, people with brand name grids, people with established businesses stepped up. It's like, oh yeah, we got to fix this. And 6 years ago, you wouldn't have had that. All you had was a few nonprofit grids and a bunch of volunteers running things out of their basements. And now you have a really professional community, a successful community, a very interactive community. We've got, in addition to hyper business, we've got all these social media channels where this thing is being discussed that are super active and very effective. I mean, this really, really pulled people together from multiple grids, from multiple backgrounds, and got them focused, got things done so fast. I was so super impressed.
Well, changing the subject again, and now we're sort of hitting on the real world a bit. But you are a security person, Maria. This must have come onto your radar. I'm referring to something I mentioned near the end of the news, and that is a chap called Hamlet Orr. He has a blog called New World Notes, which traditionally has been mainly focused on Second Life. He's sometimes taken journeys into, I forget the other world and stuff, but he does post a bit about VR and stuff now. He doesn't really take much note of OpenSim. I think maybe once in a blue moon he mentions something that he's picked up on. He doesn't really go for long articles either, but on Wednesday he had a post saying Trump appointed FCC head poses direct threat to Second Life and other virtual worlds / online games. And it has to do with the head of the FCC in the States, Ajit Pai. It sounds like an Avatar name, doesn't it? Was confirmed yesterday, and is a notorious appointment to something called net neutrality.
Yeah, we've talked about
which was a policy enshrined by Obama administration, and he's the current federal administrator, although whether administrator is an apt description, I don't know. Is overturning everything, and I'm not going to read out the whole article, but at the end, he notes this is a direct threat to online gaming as an industry and the community, since the medium depends on heavy broadband use. If Pi gets his way, gamers and obviously virtual world users should expect their internet bills to go up precipitously, or even have their access blocked altogether and experience artificial lag, etc., etc. It's particularly true of an online world like Second Life, and I will add to that, of course, OpenSim and the hypergrid, which utterly depends on heavy and constant streaming of 3D content. Now, I will say that the net neutrality thing could bring about this sort of thing, and obviously it would affect people in America, whether when we think of OpenSim and the hypergrid, that would affect people outside America, unless, of course, they were trying to get to America and servers that were being, throttled or something as well. I don't know, but it does seem to me that it's a bit like this terrible thing that we've been hearing about in the week, where employees of Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, all the tech industries have been trying to get their personnel back to America before the new immigrant legislation came in. And apparently, if you come from, say, somewhere like Egypt, and you're a freelance employee of Google, and you have a bona fide visa to work for Google in America, and you've been living in America, but you happen to be out of the country, you come back and you can no longer get into America, even though you've got a valid visa, because there's a blanket refusal to let people from those countries in. And there was the New York Times noted today that some countries are actually exempt from this exclusion, and they just happen to be countries where the president's private business actually has business arrangements.
Yeah.
So obviously, there's a few places around the world which are really bad places, but hey, he's got a business there, so we'd better not put them on the list, kind of thing. Real double, real hypocrites, really.
I do not want to get into that, because I will be talking about it forever and frothing at the mouth.
Yeah,
it's
Let's
go back to the OpenSim stuff. Net neutrality, will it affect OpenSim? Probably not. It might increase bandwidth costs a little bit, but again, probably not. Most people are, in the United States, are on contracts. The big thing for most American users is Second Life. Is Netflix, and they were already paying extra for the connections. They've kind of, they're fighting for the neutrality, but also paying when they need to. Most grids in general, the traffic is too low for them to really make any significant impact. If you are spending 100 hours a week in a virtual world, you're probably already paying extra for bandwidth anyway. Like, I myself pay extra for a high-speed connection because I need it. So in any practical sense, the impact on any individual grid or user is going to be almost barely detectable. Overall, on an industry-wide sense, it will help tilt the playing field in favor of large corporations and against small ones.
Yeah.
So I'm totally opposed to it, as are a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because I do want to have a lot of small companies popping up and trying different things. Because I think that's really, really good.
Well, I've imagined this scenario too. I mean, what would prevent a partnership between a major computer manufacturer and a major internet service provider saying, well, we only want to have this certain server software. We're not going to support Apache or open source server software on the internet. You know?
Well, Microsoft did try that at the beginning.
I didn't say any names, but you know.
Yeah, they didn't get very far though. They now actually advocate.
But that was a different government, you know.
So no, back then we didn't have net neutrality rules. They could have done that. In fact, they tried really, really hard to do it.
No, this was the difference between a company like Microsoft who's trying to monopolize, and then realizing that actually they have to adopt open source because they can't possibly by themselves.
Yeah. The problem is that if for any individual person, the difference between one and the other has to be significant for them to switch. So the Microsoft browser was significantly worse than alternatives. So people didn't want to switch until Microsoft finally improved it. I think in this particular case with virtual world platforms, if one's a little bit faster or slower than the other, at any individual person, that's not going to be the reason why they switch from one to the other, one's incrementally faster or not, you know. But when you take those things in the aggregate, when you take multiple millions of people, each one making a decision in which speed is one of the factors, then you get a playing field being tilted. But for individual small grids, individual users, I think the effect is going to be minimal. So the micro space for people, not much of a difference. In a macro space for the general economy, yes, I think it's a bad decision.
And I think people will notice it in terms of, for example, if Verizon purchases Netflix and decides, well, we're only going to show movies through Netflix. We're not going to show anything from Hulu or any of the other providers.
That's not how it works. How it works is they give the priority access channel to their preferred provider, like say Netflix.
Right.
So Netflix gets in faster, and then after Netflix comes in, everything else comes in a little slower. Mm-hmm. If they start cutting off access altogether, people will just stop using that service because you don't want a service that filters the internet, you know? So what they do is they adjust it a little bit. How much can we adjust the bandwidth? Not so bad that
favor
people
our
complain
content,
and switch,
right.
but just a little to favor our content. So that's what I mean. The adjustment is going to be barely noticeable, and not so much that people will actually, be really annoyed and leave. But overall, when you add them all up, it will make a difference.
What I was getting at, and as you say, we don't want a long conversation about this, but I was focusing back again on virtual worlds, is that these worlds, the internet itself, it's a communications medium. It's got pictures, it's got words and all sorts of bubbly dancey things now. And of course, going off the web onto the internet itself, we've got all our lovely virtual worlds and everything else that interconnect. All this is great, right? Because we are, it's internationalism at its best in theory. That's its model. What happens, however, if I'm not even, you're both American, I'm not going to even specify America, but what happens when, for example, a country, maybe a large country, right, instead of just blocking people without visas coming in, suddenly decides to block off communications with the outside world or filter them and only allow certain channels in, then, if that happens, then you could go to something like the hypergrid and let's say, I doubt it would happen, let's say you've got a grid like Franco grid and suddenly one country doesn't like the French government. All of a sudden, that's good. That's good. Well, that's good.
Not France. France is so lovable.
Yeah. Well, all right. Even choose Germany. I don't know, but we've got grids out there that aren't authorized national grids, but are very much the grid of certain geographical regions in the real world. What happens when I've got an avatar on Franco grid and suddenly I can't hypergrid to a server that's actually in one of the blocked geographic regions of the world. So, I see kind of things here on the horizon that could, tangibly, if they came to pass,
Sure.
I'm not saying they will, but could tangibly affect, the foundations, the very protocols by which we jump all around the world.
Right.
Because if that is extended, if they start panicking about cyber warfare and blocking off, making electronic walls around regions, then that could have a fundamental effect on what we're trying to build with the global societies that make up the global society, singular almost, that makes up the hypergrid.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And
I think if Trump were to try to do that, it would basically destroy the U.S. economy.
Oh yeah.
So I think at that point, I don't think any Republican would be willing to support that, because the Republicans are all about making money in the economy.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Hopefully, knock on wood, he wouldn't do anything that crazy. But then again,
General consensus is this character is totally unpredictable.
Then we mainly depend on OpenSIM in China.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, China, of course, already blocks an awful lot of, I mean, where there are, you can get to OpenSIM regions, I believe, in China, hypergrid enabled. But well, you'd probably know better than me, Maria. But obviously, China's notorious for its firewall. But
yeah, but they tend to, but their firewall is extremely selective. They tend to block things that are from news sites that publish things critical of the Chinese government.
Yeah.
They might block Facebook or New York Times or something like that, or some site out of Taiwan. But they don't do massive blocks because they understand that all their customers are overseas.
Yeah.
So they really don't want to do anything that would hurt commerce. So they're very careful about blocking things that are related to political news.
Yeah, exactly. It's rather funny because, I actually steer clear of politics and religion in virtual worlds, but you can imagine, we know very well that you go into Second Life and there's all these religious edifices everywhere that try and emulate real life worships and stuff. Not so much here on OpenSIM, thank goodness, but, people hold political meetings and, I mentioned a hypergrid over to a grid in China, which is fairly under the radar. But the moment they realize people are discussing politics, all bang goes the firewall. I don't know. I mean, it's just, these are all hypotheticals. But, when you start getting people talking very seriously, I mean, it's been email hacks influencing elections, but, talking up the dangers of, bringing up cyber war defenses and stuff like that, it makes it a bit edgy because you think, well, any cyber defenses, as it were, are essentially, blocks and filters, have a complex on the global network. And, who knows what the future holds. I don't want to think about it really, but I thought it was worth bringing it up. Just in terms of of the hypergrid and the, will virtual travel become as difficult as real world travel might, for example?
Well, like I said, hopefully not. Knock on wood. But it's a crazy time we're living in.
Indeed.
Really crazy. All right.
Okay, food for thought, I think. Okay, any other business, he says, or any other topics? James, you got anything else on your mind this week that's worthy of thought?
Mostly the topic we've taken great care to ignore has been weighing on me this week, but just have to take a smaller view of things sometimes.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Sometimes smaller is better. Relocalization and grassroots, that's where it all starts.
Yep.
And whatever ends up at the top is long-winded way up. Okay, Maria, anything else before we call it quits?
No, that's it for me. So it's an interesting time.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a quote, isn't it? We live in interesting times. Indeed. And I take it there are no questions or anything else coming in from the channel, James?
Nope, all quiet today.
Yeah. Okay. So all you miserable non-typing people watching us. Sorry, I didn't mean that really. you can type to us if you want, but if you don't, fair enough.
This is new. This is new to our viewers too. So
yes, indeed it is. But yeah, it was there on live stream, but we never watched it. Right. Okay. Don't take offense to that, folks. We're really glad you're here. We're glad you're here and watching the show. And maybe we're doing our job so well that you have no need to comment whatsoever. That's one way of looking at it. Yes. So great to have you all here. I'd like to thank James Atlloud for being here. Thank you, James.
Oh, certainly, Mel. I really enjoy it.
And thank you, Maria Korolov, for being here. Thank you, Maria.
Well, it's been fun. It's been a fun ride here in OpenSim. I've really enjoyed it. Except right now, literally, I'm getting a reader sending an email to me swearing at me.
Oh, no.
Oh, joy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we could stay on there for a bit, and you can reply. You can reply to them on air and put them in their place live. But maybe not. Fair enough.
Well, and also congratulations to you, Maria. This is such great progress.
Yeah, your news this week is
I think it's very ironic when somebody sends me an email complaining about him or her being moderated, which I don't do. Lawrence Pierce handles the moderation at Hypergrid Business, just so that, people stop blaming me for everything. And in that email is just filled with 4-letter swear words.
Oh, wow.
Like, I have a suspicion why you're moderating. I'm just saying, maybe it's a
maybe
it's a clue here.
A stream of 4-letter words would imply somebody I really don't want to know, but cut them off at the knob or whatever it is. Anyway, that was whatever will be. Okay, and it's goodbye for me to Mal Bones, of course. If you want news throughout the week, don't forget you can follow me at twitter.com/malbones, MALBUNS, or one word, or indeed you can follow twitter.com/metaworldnews, which features sort of hypergrid type things. Usually I post those on Google Plus too. You can follow Maria at twitter.com/Maria Korolov. And you can also follow Hypergrid Business itself at twitter.com/hypergridbusiness. So between those four, at least, you can, keep up to date until we're back with you, commenting on it all. So I think that's it for now. We will be returning next week, of course. The plan is that we will be here, same time, same place. I
thought we were going to be in Second Life next week.
Well, I don't know whether it's worth it. I mean, we will tune in and you'll find out where we are. We will certainly be here for the news, and then maybe we'll change grids and hop over to Second Life, or maybe we won't. We will decide really at the time. I guess if I will have a word with Tara and see if there's lots of news for her to bring us, and if so, we'll go to Second Life. If not, we'll probably stay here. So we'll see.
By here also, we can say we'll be on YouTube next week for quite certain.
Yes, indeed. Okay, it's good. A Hypergrid. We'll be here on YouTube. Oh, and the other thing is, I hope we will be bringing Inworld to you more or less bang on the dot at noon Pacific time from now on. Our plan here is to start the news show at about 11. And have it out the way so that we can still have a set time to get the guests over here for Inworld reviews. So hopefully we'll be around the same time, same place. Job will be around midday Pacific time. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm going to wish you all a very good morning, a very good afternoon, very good evening, and indeed a good tomorrow, depending on wherever and whenever, of course, you are. And we're out of here. Bye for now.